Hello everyone, I'm Levatros, and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be reviewing Christopher Nolan's latest film, Oppenheimer. As usual, I won't be mentioning any spoilers or things I wouldn't want to know myself before seeing the movie until after a very clear transition, although I'm not really sure if you can spoil the history. But to let you know if this is a movie that might be right for you, I think that's a pretty easy task. If you're a fan of Christopher Nolan and you're not turned off by the idea of watching a 3-hour movie that's mostly people talking about science and politics, feel free to pause this video now and go see it for yourself. Christopher Nolan is one of the most uncompromising directors. It really pays off in the production quality of this film. Even if the subject matter doesn't call out to you, it's clear that this movie is very well produced. Despite the movie mostly being people in buildings talking about science and politics, it doesn't feel slow and monotonous throughout all 3 hours of the film. I'm glad a movie about a scientist that not a lot of people know about and takes place during World War II but doesn't actually focus on the combat can get such a huge budget and be an even bigger success. Now, that's about all I want to say before getting to spoilers, so this is the transition to spoiler territory. Now, while the movie is very high quality, I didn't feel like I had a lot to say about it that most reviewers haven't touched on already. Like Robert Downey Jr.'s amazing performance, the 3 hours feeling closer to 2.5, and the cast having more stars than the Orion constellation. What I want to do instead is focus on areas of the film that I really appreciated that maybe not everyone else noticed. Now, while I'm sure everyone knows the impressive cast, one person I was particularly glad to see was Benny Safdie. You may know him as the scientist that shook hands with Oppenheimer, and Emily Blunt was like, you shook hands with him? I want to spat in his face. Doesn't ring a bell? He's the one that looks like he's trying to make his role in Oppenheimer double as his audition reel for Powder. The reason I was so excited to see him in Oppenheimer is because Benny Safdie is one half of the Safdie brothers, who wrote and directed Uncut Gems and Good Time, which he also co-stars in with Robert Pattinson. It's impressive that Christopher Nolan cast someone who's mostly known for playing the not-so-bright brother of a criminal as one of the smartest men in the world. The only thing more impressive is that he did it twice, because he also cast Josh Peck. I was also glad to see Rami Malek in this film, but he's such a distinct actor that when they asked him to state his name for the record during the courthouse scene, I almost expected him to go, Jack Quaid is another actor I was glad to see in this film, although it's another actor that's hard for me to not see them as the characters they played. I was questioning if he was on the project because it wasn't fast enough to kill people one by one with a knife, or if he just needed a new weapon to fight Homelander. Now, one thing I was a little bit concerned about is that Christopher Nolan isn't exactly known for writing women well.
Everyone and everything that's ever lived, destroyed instantly. Says enough?
Including my son.
So I was concerned that with the way Emily Blunt's character is portrayed, the audiences won't like her just because she's not an enthusiastic mother to the children she had with the guy who's cheated on her. But I was really glad to see the courtroom scene, both because it's a great scene itself, but also getting to see that despite the issues they had, Oppenheimer was right about being able to trust her and that they've walked their fire together. It gave her character a lot more depth and showed her in a new light. With biopics, it's hard to tell how much of it's accurate and how much is dramatized for the big screen. Like, was there actually a storm that delayed the test? I feel like Christopher Nolan is someone that would keep it more grounded and not change the facts to fit the narrative, but I still stay wary by nature. I was reassured though when I saw a video showing actual footage from the bomb test and seeing how accurately it was recreated in the film, including it being delayed by a thunderstorm. I've included a link to the full video in the description below if you're interested. Even though it feels boilerplate to mention Robert Downey Jr.'s amazing performance in Oppenheimer, I do have to give credit where credit is due because I usually don't consciously notice the quality of a performance unless it's really bad or really good, and this was noticeably good. This is even more impressive because the movie's full of distinguished actors giving it all to their roles, no matter how small. No one felt like they were phoning it in, even if they only had a few lines throughout the whole film. Now, to cover any negatives before getting to the conclusion for this review, I will say that while the movie is very technically impressive, it hasn't really been on my mind a lot since seeing it, and I haven't really felt a lot of urge to discuss the movie with people. I think there's three main reasons for this. One, this movie is based on an actual historical event, so I don't feel like there's a lot of room for interpretation, or if there is, judging an actual person's motives based on a movie feels like a fruitless effort. And while Oppenheimer himself is a very complex historical figure, I don't feel like I know enough about him outside of the movie to have an intelligent conversation about him. Two, I'm not generally interested in discussing history or politics, and with this movie being rooted in that, it's pretty hard to discuss the plot without either of those coming up. While it's interesting to discuss whether the heroes and villains were right in a movie that's fictional, it sounds pretty grueling to have a conversation with someone who goes, America did the right thing dropping those bombs in Japan, and they use a movie as evidence. 3. I feel like everyone's in pretty universal agreement about the movie already. I feel like a lot of our conversations would boil down to, this scene was really good. Aha, I agree. This scene was also really good. Aha, I agree. It usually takes two different opinions to have an interesting conversation, but it's pretty impressive when one of the few problems with the film is that there's nothing to complain about. So, in conclusion, while so much is up to opinion, it almost feels like an objective statement to say that this movie is carefully crafted and well executed. 3 years ago, if you had asked people what they want Christopher Nolan's next film to be about, I don't think many of them would have said Julius Robert Oppenheimer. But the way it's crafted leaves a lot to be appreciated about the film. This historical event may not feel as prominent compared to World War II itself, but the ending does a good job of evoking the feeling that changed the timeline of history and affects our lives today. But that's going to wrap it up for my very second review, and now you can have the Barbenheimer experience and watch my Barbie review right after this. But either way, thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time.